Welcome back. Last time I was talking about government and how the government couldn't govern you and I as individuals, not in this government, not in the government that provided us with freedom, with educations like libraries, public libraries. And if we look back through history and we use a little bit of logic, we kind of figure this out. So, if the legislature and the executive branch of government don't govern us, what does? If they don't write laws, if their laws and statutes are supposed to just govern corporations, commerce, themselves, postal services, armies, then what's supposed to govern us as individuals? And the truth is law. And what is this law? And where is it written? And what does it say? Well, just to kind of get this out of the way, constitutions, when they were written for kind of simple people to read. They're not written in a statutory form where it's like Section 5.3, Object 282, character A1B, some type of code. It's written in real clear, easy to read language. And it's done that way so that the common individual, anybody who knew how to read, anybody who had an education and a desire to educate themselves, because those were the only people who had an education, they could figure out, how to be free, how to function. And they need to be able to read a constitution. So I'm going to look at jury trials, because that's the law. That's where the law comes from. That's the highest authority in this land. The problem is we don't have law anymore in this land. And nobody wishes to sit on a jury duty, sit on jury trial, jury duty. People try and get out of it. In fact, you can just YouTube ways to get out of doing jury duty, and you're going to get a lot of stuff coming up. So, just to kind of make that point. But we are the ones who create the law, and we are the ones who can govern one another. And it's called natural law, and the law is written on our hearts. And that's what they talk about in the Declaration of Independence with the law of nature and nature's God. They understood these things. They understood that when government started encroaching on your freedoms, there was no stopping it. They all warned that at some point in time, we would have a tyrannical government. And if we weren't careful, we would lose the law altogether. And we've seen what happens in countries and places where they lose the law altogether. It doesn't end up well for the people. So jury trials in the 1777 Georgia Constitution, all causes of whatever nature shall be tried in the Supreme Court, okay? This is the Supreme Court. All the causes are tried in the Supreme Court because the law is supreme over the court of the executive and the court of the legislature. And we know this because the legislature could pass a bill, send it over to the executive signs it, and then it goes to the courts, and the courts say, ain't lawful. We gotta kick it out. We gotta do away with it. It's happened before. But the law is supreme, because we're a nation of laws and not men. Which court shall consist of the Chief Justice and 3 or more of the justices residing in the county. In case of the absence of the Chief Justice, the senior justice on the bench shall act as Chief Justice, with the clerk of the county attorney for the state, sheriff, coroner, constable, and the jurors. Oh, you had that many government officials? And the jurors? And the jury? Seems like a lot of people, but you think about it, you go down to your local courthouse and you're going to see a sheriff, you're going to see some state attorneys. If you're there on the right day, you're going to see some jurors and probably some constables, because that'd be like deputies today for the most part. And in cases of the absence of any of these officers, the justices could just appoint somebody for the time being. Okay? And if any plaintiff or defendant in civil causes shall be dissatisfied with the determination of the jury, then, and in that case, they shall be at liberty within 3 days to enter an appeal from that verdict. So, if you were in a civil trial, because criminal trial, the verdict of the jury, that was it. You were getting punished. But a civil trial, if you disagreed with the verdict of the jury, if you felt that it was wrong in some manner or fashion, you could appeal. So what court would you appeal to? Because you're already in the Supreme Court, remember that. Demand a new trial by a special jury. Now, how is this jury put together? Each party, plaintiff and defendant, shall choose 6 people. So the plaintiff chooses 6, the defendant chooses 6. 6 more names shall be taken indifferently from a box. And then you're going to put all those 18 names into the box, and you're just going to take the first 12 names that come out. And here's what's interesting. They have this whole thing on jury selection for the second jury, for the jury that you appeal to, okay? But for the first jury, they don't have this kind of, process, procedure. Why? Well, because back then, if you had the state's attorney, the sheriff, the coroner, the constable, the chief justice, and at least 3 justices, there should be more if there could be more. If you're not doing anything today and you're a justice, come down for the jury trial. That's what you're supposed to do. All those people have lives, they all have jobs. This probably didn't happen often. It probably wasn't often where me and you caused such a problem that we had to take each other down to the courthouse. Okay? Like right now, if you go down to the courthouse, I bet 85% of the stuff you're going to see, 90%, 95% of the stuff you're going to see, it's just going to be administrative. It's going to be divorce hearings, corporations, criminal charges. It's not going to be real law. I promise you, you're not going to see me and you taking each other to court if you go and sit at a court for a really long time. It's rare. It does happen. Okay? But the people back then, it wasn't hard for them to find jurors because everybody was like, hey, come pick me. I'll be a juror because I want to see the drama that happened between these 2 people to actually make a court go on. Holy cow, are you kidding me? I'm not going to miss this. This is going to be the talk of the town. I love where it goes on. So it goes on to say, once that special jury makes their verdict, there's no appeal. You can't appeal that because the appeal is just an administrative process. Next article. The jury shall be judges of law as well as of fact. So the jury decides the law and the fact. Okay? That's it. That's the whole reason the jury's there. The jury is there to judge the case. If all or any of the jury have any doubts concerning points of law, then you know what they can do? They can just ask one of the judges because you got at least 4 of them in the room. And the judges will go consecutively and give their opinion. Give their opinion. Why are the judges of law giving their opinion? Well, what happens when you go to a court of appeals? They issue an opinion. What does the Supreme Court do? They issue an opinion. The jury's so befuddled by the case, they're like, hey, you guys are professionals of this. You ever seen this go on before? You got any ideas on how we should handle it? It's the only thing that makes sense. It's the only thing that makes sense. This next article is real interesting. The jury shall be sworn in to bring the verdict according to their layer and the opinions of how they entertain the evidence, how they play around with the evidence in their mind. And that's the jury. The special jury to be sworn in has to bring the verdict according to law and entertaining the evidence. The special jury, that's the last appeal. There's no justice that could overrule you. The people are the final word. And how else could you make sure that we have a separation of powers in our government if you and I couldn't take over the most kind of important part, the judgment part, the way we judge each other, punish each other, have societal norms? And we let the state do all that. We're all like, man, I'm too busy on my iPhone to come and serve jury duty, so I'm gonna just let the judge do it. And good riddance if that guy gets everything taken by the government and then they throw him in prison and he didn't do anything wrong. But man, I got stuff to do. I got an iPhone to play on. Now, this comes from the Constitution of Georgia today. And, of course, I was talking about juries, so I'm going to kind of stay on juries. Because in 1777, the jury was the ultimate law. You and I were the last buck on authority. If you and I didn't agree upon it, the government couldn't do it to us or enforce it on us. Because we were the only ones who could issue judgment orders, and all those other people from the government, they were just there to witness the judgment orders we passed on somebody. That's all they were there to do, was witness it. And why were they there to witness it? Because government's just set up to protect our life, happiness, pursuit of happiness, property. Every single government says it in this country. You go to the state constitution, it's always written somewhere. So this is about juries today. Right to trial by jury, number of jurors, selection and compensation of jurors. The right to a trial by jury shall remain inviolate, except that the court shall render judgment without verdict of a jury in all civil cases where nobody's defending it. Nobody's defending it, and the judge says, well, in law, I can rule this in your favor because enough evidence appears upon the record of the court. In criminal cases, the defendant shall have a public and speedy trial by an impartial jury, and the jury shall be the judges of the law and the facts. The jury shall be the judges of the law and the facts. And if the jury doesn't agree with the law, if just a couple of jurors don't agree with the law that the legislature wrote, well, the courts are supreme. And that's just it. It's done. It's over. The courts are supreme. Because you and I are supposed to control the government. You and I are supposed to be a part of it. You and I are supposed to make sure that this wild thing doesn't get out of control. All of the people who fought to found this country, that's what all of them said. They said government is a horrible, atrocious thing you gotta have around. But if you're gonna have this horrible, atrocious thing around, at least keep law for yourself. If you're gonna have something that creates armies and controls commerce and resources and stuff, well, just keep the law for yourself. Because that's the way to really be free. And this is a free country. We have been probably one of the most freest countries on earth. But we're losing that freedom. And now we're losing it incredibly fast because we don't have courts of law anymore. And nobody wishes to listen to the law anymore. I mean, even a lot of Christians out there that their Bible tells them God's the only one true supreme sovereign in the entire universe, they still say, well, it's a governmental law. You got to do it. I thought there was only one true sovereign. This is why in the Bible it probably says, don't worship other gods before me. Don't have any other sovereigns. Don't have anybody in your life that can get you to go against your conscience. And this is the government we're left with. And most of the people in the country, they're fighting over who's going to be the next president. Presidency wasn't our court to control. And that's why when the Constitution was originally written, we couldn't elect the president. We still don't. The Electoral College does. And they just listen to us because the states have legislated that they could do so. They didn't originally. We're focused on the wrong type of law, the wrong type of courts. We're all like, let's elect this individual or let's elect that individual because we like the way they administrate us, even if the people on the other side don't like the way that they administrate them. We just fight with each other. Real law, true law, it's written on your heart. It's put there by God. And when you believe that the state has just and moral laws, when they take away everything from people over a plant, some places try to arrest you if you're just not wearing a mask. You trust them with the law? We got it on our hearts. And if we don't start using it, if we don't start utilizing it and sharing these ideas and coming together and see the tricks that are being played on us, we'll never have freedom. Next time, I'm going to talk about administrative courts, because this was basically the only court of law that exists. Everything else in the government is administration. So, yep. Anyways, thanks for joining administrative courts next time. And we're just going to go through this step by step one idea at a time. Peace.